Okay, perfect. Hello, everyone. My name is Randall Warnes, and I am thrilled to be here on the CXO panel for NestGen. Before we get started, there's a few housekeeping things. First, I want to say that education is one of the most challenging things that we face as a drone community, trying to get people to understand what we're doing, how we're doing it, why it's beneficial. So I want to say thank you to the Flight-Based team for hosting this event. I know that Prashita, Yushi, and the team behind the scenes have been working on this tirelessly. We also have to consider they are right now in the middle of the night, still up, still kicking, and bringing us content. So thank you for that. Also, there's a Q&A section of your panel, and for me, there's a reason that you're here on this viewing this panel and not reading a news article or not reading a white paper. You're here to interact. You're here to get your questions answered. So use that Q&A section throughout the entire presentation, and we will try to answer as many of the questions that we can when we get to the end of the material. So today I am very honored to be sitting on a panel with such accomplished people that have been pulling different strings in the drone and security space for a number of years. So I'm just going to do some quick introductions. Feel free, panel, to say hello, but we'll just get into the content after the introduction. So first, we have Ryan Smith, who's the founder and president of Titan Protection. From my understanding, 600 employees viewing thousands of cameras and also doing on-ground physical security of sites around the United States. So has a really good idea of what the end user is experiencing in this, next generation of technology, both AI and robotics, and how that's transformed the security space. Ryan, thanks for being here.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Yeah, you nailed it. People and technology. That's our jam. But honored to be here. Thank you.
Perfect. Appreciate that, Ryan. So we also have Jack Wu, who's the co-founder and CEO of Nightingale Security. They're one of the OG drone in a box people. Both Ryan and I were talking about how we met Jack Wu at the same place in 2015, 2016, and they've been definitely keeping the technology on the cutting edge as far as security and drones. And one thing interesting about Nightingale is you develop both hardware and the software side of kind of translating this into the security space. Is that right, Jack?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, glad to be here.
Perfect. Look forward to your contributions. We also have Jeremy Schneiderman, who's the founder and CEO, or co-founder and CEO. Don't want to leave the other founders out of Drone Nerds, largest reseller of drone enterprise solutions potentially in the world, but I think we could likely say that. So when we're talking about almost a dozen years of sitting face to face with end users of this technology, seeing how this is all kind of transformed and evolved into what it is today. Jeremy sees a lot of the customers using this technology not only in the security space but in others. Jeremy, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Randall. Looking forward to a great conversation.
Perfect. Look forward to it as well. And then the man of the last 18 hours, Nitin Gupta, and his organization, Flightbase, is the CEO and founder. And basically, I see Flightbase as being kind of a bridge, taking all these technologies together, both on the hardware and software side, and kind of making them so they all collate and act together to form a solution. In the drone world, a lot of us are systems integrators, but you're system integrators to an extent. But Nitin, thanks for having us all here and allowing everyone to benefit from your team's effort.
No, thanks, Randall, and thanks everyone else for joining and for helping us make it a success. And you correctly mentioned the role of Flightbase, where we are kind of trying to act as a bridge to bring all these pieces together, so that finally we can create value for the users. We can create some amazing systems for our customers and partners. So thanks, Randall, for doing this.
Of course, yeah, it's my pleasure. So, and I'm Randall Warnes. I'm the CEO of Anzu Robotics. Today, I'm just the guy asking the questions. But again, you could be that guy or gal as well by putting questions in the Q&A section. But we're going to just jump right into it. Today's conversation is largely revolving around autonomy, AI. And me, I'm not an expert of neither. And so I get to ask questions that kind of give us a baseline, and then we will grow from there. So Nitin, I wanted to ask you first, when we talk about autonomy as one word and AI as a second word, how are we distinguishing the difference of the two, and how are we talking about them coming together in the context of this conversation?
Right. So they both basically mean the same thing. However, the way our understanding of these worlds have evolved is slightly different. So autonomy is something that we have been talking about for many years, and that basically deals with not having a pilot in the loop where your systems can operate on their own. So whatever we used to do even a couple of years ago, where a drone can take off from, say, a dock, you can have pre-planned missions, or you can have emergency response-based missions. So everything is happening without any person in the loop. So that is all autonomy. Now with AI, what fundamentally we mean is generative AI. So Gen AI is a new thing, new technology that has just become available. And that is where now systems have become much more intelligent than what they could have been earlier. And that is where we are getting into reinforcement learning, or things where systems can figure out what is going on and get better on their own. So there is this learning element that has now become part of these autonomous systems. So that is what we now mean by AI.
Perfect. I appreciate that. And I mean, that, again, that's to set the kind of ground definition of what we're trying to do. But Jeremy, I wanted to pose this to you. Since you've spent over a decade in front of customers using robotic technology for a vast number of things, how are you seeing current customers adopting things like that include AI and autonomous drones? But then also, what are the misconceptions, or what are our customers coming to you for? And it's like, no, that doesn't even exist today. What are those? How is that presented?
Well, the way it's being used today, it's different across all the different verticals, right? So, in public safety, a drone is automatically going out to a crime scene based on one, location point, and the drone gets there automatically. Talking about, when Nitin, that's the autonomy. We're not at a point yet where we can say, hey, go fly to this spot and just voice it. I think that's where we're going to get to. We're not there yet. Where I see AI across some of the, really the adoption where we're seeing the most adoption is when some of our software partners are taking kind of the data that would be, let's say, a roof inspection, hail damage, where instead of having to go and identify it every single time, they run it through the engine. Now the drone can go into an automated flight and automatically tell you whether it's a hail damage or, some other damage that's on the roof. So.
And I've thought about this as far as reporting as well, where there's no standardization across drone industry, and as far as like any user group, whether it's critical infrastructure, oil and gas, public safety, not everyone is forced to use things in the same way. So maybe AI could also generate reports that are consistent across the board as well. I know that in writing, you read a blog and it's written by ChatGPT. There's similarities between all of them. Well, now when you have a report of a bunch of drone images and you're asking AI to create that it will look the same as a report, written in India, written in the United States, written in places in Europe, that they will all kind of have those collective results, I guess. Is that something that you see as an outcome of this? And that's an open question. You could answer it, Jeremy.
Yeah, I would say I think that would be great, right? Eventually, that we get to that standardization. It's easier as a solution provider. If there is that standardization, you kind of take, here are the results. It's standard across all of your customers. It's easier to manage. Where today it's a little bit more specific to the customer, what their output is looking like. I think standardization in any industry is beneficial.
Yeah, and so this question is going to be for Ryan, because you are a user of security solutions, and not only drones, but you've adopted kind of drone technology into what you do. What do you see as the challenges for organizations like yours to invest more in adding this technology into what you're doing, as well as where do you see human interaction is always going to be part of that loop, regardless of how good the AI gets?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, this has been a force multiplier for us, for sure. Our fixed camera remote guarding operates very similarly. We use AI. We want the technology to do the heavy lifting, tell us when there's something that needs action. I believe firmly that there's still going to be a need for a human in a loop, and maybe particularly more in the security side, because there's still that last mile of, okay, we've identified something that needs action. What is that action going to be? So I think blending the two together and, having a human in the loop so that there is somebody to respond to an emergency or something that needs, additional action. But we're as motivated as anybody to have that human interaction limited. When we talk about the autonomous patrol or response using drones for security, we want the drone to operate autonomously, but we're still then on that back end. So I think it's kind of a blend, but this certainly frees up human capital and allows us to have better trained, better quality people kind of on that back end.
Yeah, you use the word training, and I haven't really thought about that, but having 600 employees, which I believe is the number that you cited, to get them to all operate in the same way, barring putting all 600 in the same room with the same attention span, hearing the same speaker or presenter or trainer give that training, AI is a way to get consistency across an organization that's widely spread. Is that a way that you think about AI in the future for your organization?
100%. Yeah, no, standardization and keeping the processes as simple and standard as possible. And then, my team hears me evangelize auditing on the other end. How are we auditing it to make sure that it's delivering and happening the way that we anticipate it? So those two things are paramount for us.
Perfect. Well, Ryan, I have more questions for you in my brain, but I'm going to go to Jack and then I'll come back to those in a second. So Jack, again, your situation is kind of interesting because in the drone space, a lot of developers or manufacturers focus on either the hardware or the software, but very few are doing everything. So in your situation, what do you find as being the biggest hurdles in providing these solutions? And how do you make a product that plays well with others, including, the generative AI platforms that are probably going to be in some part in this solution that we're creating rather than each organization building their own AI platforms?
Yeah, I mean, we see our platform as just another computing platform, like an iPhone or a laptop or a server. It just happens to be a robotic platform with sensors. It is designed to be mission specific, so we only integrate with applications that are relevant to physical security. So any AI functions would have to help solve that problem. And being a full stack, I don't think it's quite that unusual. There are other companies out there like Skydio that also have a full stack as well. We think having a full stack is a tremendous advantage because I can go in there and I can do integration very easily. I can actually go down to the firmware level and make changes. So if I want to add a new sensor, if I want to augment my airframe, I can make all those changes. I don't need to wait and then work with the airframe provider or the base station provider. And if one makes a change without telling me, I'm screwed. Or we make the changes in-house and the entire software is ours, which makes the extensibility of that software also much easier and much more dependable.
So you mentioned computing at the very start of that answer, and this is a question just in general, and I think everyone could have a take on this, so if you do, feel free to speak to it, but Jack, I'll present it to you. When we're dealing with AI and we're making decisions real time, do you need to have improved processing power on the drone itself to make that happen? Or can you take most off-the-shelf drones that are in existence today and do some form of AI learning real time?
I think anytime you have to do any math, right? That's what most AI programs are. You're going to need to have processors that can handle those instructions. So it does not hurt at all to have a CPU, GPU on board, and you want to do it at the edge. So all robots are edge-based devices. Just by nature, they have to have local sensors. They have to process data locally. So if you want to do it with, let's say, the Phantom 2 or whatever, it's impossible, right? But if you want to do it with, current drones and also drones that are upcoming, I think it's just going to be the standard. I don't think AI is going to be anything we even discuss. We're just going to talk about applications.
Yeah.
So
it's really interesting. I do want to have one more follow-up to this, which is kind of hardware related, which is, do we think that supply chain is going to be a challenge for getting drones to a point where they can ingest AI information? And do we think, as a collective, 4G, 5G, LTE connected drones are a positive thing in this current landscape of geopolitics and drone manufacturing? Or is it something that will be like regulatory hurdles because there is this constant amount of data being moved around from the drone.
Yeah, all PCs have to have, all computing platforms have to have network connections. Whether it's 5G, 4G LTE, doesn't matter. In the future, if you're a drone, you don't have it, you're really not a robot. You're just a remote control aircraft. So that's how we see it.
It's a really
I'll
interesting.
leave other people. Yeah.
Yeah, if anyone else wants to answer that, but Jack, I do want to say that that's a really interesting answer that would only come from interaction in a panel like this. Like honestly, that as just a bite where you just said if it doesn't have LTE, it doesn't have 5G, it's just a remote air.
Well, would you hire a worker that only talks to one person, and can't talk to anybody else in the company, right? Would you hire a worker that you have to put in a backpack, right? Carry them on your back, drive them to the job site, take them out, feed them, and then tell them what to do. And then after they're done with their job, drive them home and feed them again. Would you do that?
Yeah. No, it's really compelling answer.
You could definitely do that, but so.
Anything else on supply chain, componentry? Anything else for the rest of the panel? Anything else you guys want to say?
You could also think of it as a, like, I kind of agree with what Jack said, but at the same time, we do kind of find customers who are very sensitive about data, and they are okay keeping all their data on premise. And they have large facilities, they have private networks, they want to retain all the data on their private networks. It's still connected, but it's within their networks. And that is where we did a launch for AIR. So this is an edge device, which does not go on the drone, but it is connected on the dock. So that way you're not, like, whatever heavy compute you need for your AI compute loads, you're not putting all that heavy stuff on the drone, which makes it very, again, you're draining the batteries and it's not very efficient to carry it around. So you can just put it next to the dock and you have a very high reliable link anyway between the dock and the drone. And you can do all your compute on this edge device, which is connected to the dock, instead of taking everything to the cloud. So it's kind of a middle ground, not having everything on the drone and not having it in the cloud, but close to the dock.
So Nitin, because you're speaking to this now, what have you seen as the system integrator of system integrators? What have you seen as the biggest breakthroughs for AI and autonomy being used on aerial robotic platforms over the past few years?
So I think like security is one of the biggest use cases. So security, where you are trying to detect all kinds of threats and people, cars, etc., and trying to make kind of good judgment on what your security status is of the overall site. So that has been one of the biggest use cases so far, and that is where before Gen AI, it was relatively hard to train your models for specific objects or specific things. Now with VLMs, that is visual language models and things like that, it is going to become a lot more exciting over next few months, and that is where a lot of our effort is focused on, that how can we leverage all this technology to really provide something that was difficult to imagine till even a few months ago.
Yeah, definitely. So Jeremy, because we've focused, I mean, with Ryan and Jack's kind of purpose in their organizations, what other use cases are you seeing being adopted for autonomous or AI drone use in other verticals other than security?
I would probably agree with the panel. Security is definitely the largest for us. We're starting to see some livestock monitoring in agriculture. We're seeing mainly security here in the U.S. And agriculture would be the two largest for us. Public safety DFR is obviously a big adoption, but that kind of crosses over with security.
So let's imagine that 10% of the addressable market is being addressed today, right? And let's say security and agriculture and livestock are part of that. Is the other 90% being slowed because of regulations, or is it being slowed because the technology is not necessarily there to actually achieve what they're trying to achieve?
I think some of the other verticals don't require the same mission to be flown repeatedly. So if you don't need a repeated flight mission, you don't need to have autonomy and a dock, and you don't have to have that scheduled. So I think a good portion of that other of that 90% is not those automated flights. You know, construction monitoring, I think there's going to be a good uptick in construction, but it's a temporary. You put the dock on there for a year, you build the structure, and then you move it to the next place.
So I'll ask this kind of openly, but when we, for a long time, Beyond Visual Line of Sight has been like this gate to the next chapter of drone industry. Do you think that we're going to end up being positively overwhelmed by when BVLOS becomes more prevalent and the safety is there? Or do you think that we're going to get there and be like, oh, it's really not creating this mass adoption like we hoped for? Does anyone have like a crystal ball when it comes to that?
Yeah, I think if we look at some of the other countries that don't have the same regulations that we have, the adoption is much higher. So I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised when those regulations are in our favor.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to be like, wow, where's the demand? I think that demand is going to be there.
Open up your inbox, send an email to the FAA, and tell them to get their stuff together real quick. And other AAs, CAAs, and Transport Canada, wherever you live. But make it known that we want to see this happen. We're ready.
Or just send it to Doge, and then they'll make sure that if it doesn't get done, it's cut.
Perfect. So Ryan, back to you. Here's a question that you probably get all the time when you're talking about, well, I think anyone that owns a company that has employees that they're kind of threatened by robotics. What do you say to people that say that robots or AI are going to take away jobs and replace people? How do you see that playing out in your organization?
It's a great question, and it comes up quite a bit. And I think it's a glass half full, glass half empty. You know, my daughter, who's 10, asked me that the other day, seeing AI and everything. She said, am I going to have a job when I grow up? And I said, I think it's a perspective, how you want to look at it. You can either leverage AI or you can be run over by it. And I think it's the perspective of how are you using it? How are you blending it? I think for us, like I've said, we let the technology do the heavy lifting. That allows us to have a better quality trained personnel and a better product. And the secret is blending those things together, not replacing them or having one or the other. So I think it's complete perspective. I think it's how you want to look at it is how it is. And I firmly believe, or at least my perspective is it's augmenting and enhancing, not taking away from. And, to pile on that, our physical security guarding section continues to grow at the rate it always has, and our remote guarding section is growing equally. So those are two forces that are growing in tandem, not opposing.
Yeah, and I think that one interesting thing about the use of drone technology in general is that the adoption by organizations that deal with security, like safety of a person or of physical assets, and the value of those assets, make it so that you lean into cutting edge technology. But Jeremy had mentioned livestock and agriculture. Farmers have been farming in a traditional way forever. And I think that you said something interesting, which is you could either jump on board or you could be left behind. And so those that feel like they're able to accomplish, let's say solar panel inspection using traditional methods, you are behind. And the drone space has proven that you are 5+ years behind because it's so much more efficient, so much safer, so much faster. The results are much better. So I think
I think too, whichever perspective you choose will come to fruition, right? I mean, if it's, you're going to leverage it and use it for positive benefit, that'll happen. And if you feel like it's going to replace you, it will.
Yeah, right. Some people still like to read physical newspapers, and there's a place for that, but it is still a small place with less revenue generation than it used to.
Right.
So Jack, because you work directly with organizations that are needing a solution like yours, which is, aerial robotics with data processing, both autonomous and use the future looking at AI, do you find it difficult to interact with the vast numbers of stakeholders within organizations? Meaning you probably have IT folks, you have C-suite decision makers, you have the engineers to organize where the data goes and how it functions, and then the day-to-day ingesters of that information. Do you find that these processes are challenging to get everyone within an organization on the same page as to what you can accomplish with your technology?
Yeah, I think I'd be naive if I don't think it's a challenge, right? So it's definitely herding cats, and these are big cats. They have authority, but we as a company, our philosophy is always the operators come first. The folks up on top, great. They write the checks and all this other stuff, but we're not lobbying. We're not trying to get all these folks up on top to try to make decisions and then push it downwards. The way I see it is, the people who are going to use the tools are going to be the one that give us the most immediate feedback, and that's going to help us improve the product, and that's ultimately going to get the job done. So when we approach an organization, it is always very important for us to get to know the people that are operating the system, and we don't talk over them. We're not, oh, we're Silicon Valley company, we do AI. BS. Yeah. We don't do any of that shit. Okay. The only thing that we do is we explain, hey, look, this is just a tool. It's like your drill. It's like your car. It's like your forklift, right? These are the buttons that you push, and this does A, B, and C, right? And if you want it to D and we can't do it, tell us. We'll get it to do D for you, period. That's it. And we train them to the best of our abilities. But of course, humans, we all make mistakes. But through that mistakes, we actually learn edge cases, and we learn better fail safes. So we're able to develop software to compensate for those human errors. So whatever the end user does is always beneficial. So that's how we approach these organizations.
Yeah, and I think that Nightingale, I believe you were 2014 founded, right?
Yep.
Right. So I think that we have a situation in the drone or aerial robotics space in which maturity of an organization learns these things. And those that are quick to overpromise what AI, what autonomy can do, end up giving our industry a black eye, end up getting people at the top to not believe in the technology. So Nitin, this is questions for you because you are a company that is global. You are a company that is hardware agnostic. I won't even say for the most part. I wanted to say for the most part, but you are hardware agnostic. So what challenges do you face as a company picking winners, meaning that you have partners that you can rely on that will deliver, that give you and your customers exactly what they're looking for and don't do that over promising, especially when it's so easy to go raise money on a promise, for instance.
Right. So I think what works best is working very closely with customers and seeing what is creating real value for them. And again, being a global company, it gives us a vantage point where we are working with so many of our partners. And when we see something working, say in Australia, we know exactly what the problem was and what kind of solution worked for one customer. We are able to work with now partners in other regions and help them configure and build solutions that we have found working in Australia, right? So that way we are able to kind of crossbreed ideas and quickly figure out, okay, what is the best way to solve a problem? Because somewhere with some partner we were able to do it in one place, so can we replicate and do it again in other parts of the world? So bringing those best practices, kind of trying to formulate some sort of standardizations, figure out, okay, this is the best practice to solve this problem based on whatever learnings we are gathering from different places. So yeah.
You said something that struck me as an individual, my personal journey, which is I'm the CEO of Anzu Robotics. We started in the US and Canada. We didn't have CE certification, for instance, on our drones. So you could find this solution that's perfect for an American or Canadian adopter of drone technology. But if you tried to translate that, me as a manufacturer, I have my shortcomings. I have inabilities to replicate that same system in Europe today, maybe in tomorrow, or if I decide to make those investments. So do you find yourself as brokering those kind of negotiations where you're taking technologies into new regions or new customer or verticals that were previously unexplored because of those reasons, that you're trying to replicate that solution in different parts of the world?
Kind of. So we are kind of becoming also a channel for distribution for many of our partners, because they are regional companies. Like, we work with several partners who provide DAA or detect and avoid kind of solutions, but they are very focused on, say, only the European market. Now, once they start working with us and we are able to see that, okay, same technology can be used by a customer in, say, Southeast Asia or in Australia or in the US, now we are able to introduce them to those partners, those customers, and help them kind of reach a wider market because they have the right product with them.
Perfect answer. So the last question I have that's for everyone is when we think about AI and we think about trust. I can go on ChatGPT, tell it to make an image, and there'll be an arm sticking out of a head or whatever, right? Like we know that it is not perfect in response. So at what point do we believe that we will be able to trust AI for decision making to where we can have humans back away from that? And it could be a timeline or a capability. When it gets to this, then we'll have that trust. How do you guys see trust in AI when it comes to drone technology?
Consistent results that are accurate. We got to get there.
Right?
Yeah.
We can think of that as an opportunity, right? So because the base LLMs, they can do so much, and now it is an opportunity for other innovators, other industry experts that can we put guardrails around it? Can we do whatever other wrapper layers need to be built on top of those base LLMs so that it starts working well for the use cases that we have, for our applications and so on.
Sure. I imagine like for wind turbine inspection, you have to turn the wind turbine off to do the inspection. And I know that energy companies are very reluctant to do this because it no longer is generating power. It takes a lot of energy to spin back up, etc. So imagining you send AI to do this mission, capture the data, just to find out it didn't do it correctly. And now you don't have the human being standing there to do the vetting of that data real time. You can't go do it again, and you've missed an opportunity. So I think that in the progress that we're all making, one of the things that is that I started this whole conversation with is education is so important. Repeated reliable results, like Jeremy said, are only known if people are sharing their repeated reliable results and truthfully sharing their repeated and reliable results. And I think there's a tendency to share only good news and to not really collaborate. And so Nitin, your organization being that bridge and seeing all the solutions and bringing them together and informing and consulting customers what works and what doesn't work is it can't be understated how important that is. So you're providing not only customers with a product that you're building, but also an opportunity to educate like we have today, which I'll also mention is recorded and shareable. So hopefully anyone that either didn't stay for the whole 18 hours of NestGen will revisit some of those sessions, or definitely revisit your favorite session, which was the past 30 minutes of your day. But I want to go click over to see if there's questions, and if there are, we'll get to them. There's not a lot, so I'm going to ask one more. In the next 10 years, when it comes to drones or autonomy or AI, and this question used to be 3 years because we could like see it in front of us, but now I think we've realized that things get in the way. So 10 years, what kind of things do you see making the biggest impact when it comes to this technology? And let's just get an answer from everyone while we have the time. So Jeremy, do you want to start, since on my screen at least you're
I think going back to kind of one of my earlier statements, full autonomy and full AI processing. That's the ultimate. We should not be flying drones. They should just be a robot that's going in the sky and getting that actionable data. You dictate what you want, and it gets done. That's, I think, the end goal for automation and AI.
Let me ask you a question before we go to Ryan next, but let's imagine you have a drone in a box, it's self-charging, the data gets flown into, gets pushed to the end user within a report. So You're doing solar inspection, it tells you all the anomalies that they're seeing, what the importance of resolving those anomalies, what the overall bottom line impact of that data. What does the world look like in that, as far as is it a safer world? Is it a more efficient world? What do we do with our time when AI is solving all of our problems in that world?
I would say we're definitely a much more efficient. It's going to create many efficiencies if we just take the solar panel thing, right? I think there's a back end of that is the corrective actions could also be automated with other robots, right? So not only are we doing the inspection, we're generating the report, we know the trouble spots. There's a future where those things could get repaired or prevented automatically. What do we do with all the time? We keep innovating. It's like the internet. We're still 25 years since the internet came, and we're still using it as a tool every day. We have to keep evolving. It's not a full replace. Back to what Ryan said, it's never going to be a full replace.
Perfect. Thanks, Jeremy. Ryan, do you have any thoughts on next 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think full autonomy, and the closer we get, the better we are to scale. Higher increase in autonomy, higher increase in scalability. So, what we're seeing is right now it's one drone pilot to one drone. Hopefully soon that increases one to many, and then soon none to many. And that for us just allows us to scale more rapidly, have less human involvement, and focus more on that response piece of, okay, either something's gone wrong or the AI has identified an anomaly that now a human needs to step into and take care of. So, and we've seen that increase as autonomy and, video analytics on video cameras has evolved significantly. In the 2010 era, we were getting, hundreds of alerts out of a site where now we get few. And so we really want the technology to do the heavy lift, but and reduce human involvement on the back end. So I just see that increasing as autonomy does.
Perfect. Thanks, Ryan. Jack, you want to answer this next?
Yeah. I think you should. No, I think we should all look at the defense organizations, and they're developing technologies, and we're developing technologies along with them. That's going to trickle down. Especially in the areas of tactical ISR, for physical security or for DFR. Mainly, drone collaboration is going to be one of the bigger things moving forward. Again, we're not developing remote control aircraft. So people got to kind of get that out of their head, that these are not aircrafts that you're going to hand fly if you are taking on security missions, unless it's highly tactical. If it's a very specialized mission, yes, or something like CQB scenario. But even then, you're going to have drones that are they'll have enough sensors and be able to collaborate and be very, very effective in alerting, responding, and verifying to that threat. So we think collaboration and drone communication, what we call R2D2D, relay to drone, that's part of our patent, is to get the drones to talk to one another. We actually had an instance where a drone got stuck during testing out there. It lost alt network. It was a network testing. Here's the irony. It lost alt network. And then we sent another drone, and that second drone was able to do a local connection, connect to the first drone, send the instruction to the first drone to come home. And that's how we were able to inject that instruction to the first drone. That happened 6 years ago.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah. So these are going to happen in a faster rate. We just haven't productized it because there's not a demand for something like this yet. But I think eventually, as operation becomes more sophisticated, we are going to get drones that get stuck out there, and humans don't want to deal with it. So like robots should fix other robots and take care of themselves as much as possible.
Very interesting concept. Thanks, Jack. And Nitin, do you want to wrap us up on the next 10 years, what you see in your crystal ball?
Sure. So 10 years is going to be a really long time considering the pace at which technology is moving right now. So it's accelerating, and as we see, like every day now there are so many new updates on how new models are being released and how new capabilities are being developed. We see so much happening on the front of humanoids recently. So a lot is happening in robotics and physical AI. So 10 years, if you think from first principles, so today, as a human civilization, we are restrained on the 2D surface of the earth. So all our cars, all our movements are pretty much restricted on this 2D surface. While we invented aviation more than 100 years ago, but even if you today look in the sky, how many vehicles do you see at a time, at any point in time, at anywhere in the earth, anywhere on earth? So we have hardly leveraged the sky so far, despite inventing aviation 100 plus years ago. And that is because we have never been able to come up with an efficient way to leverage the skies, to exploit the skies. So we have the resource available, but technology has not been, we have not been able to come up with a technology where using the skies is fundamentally cheaper and more efficient than using the roads, right? So by default, we use roads, and only for certain applications are we using skies today. right? So think about how cell phones completely changed the way we used to communicate. So there was, once cell phones became so affordable and so reliable and so kind of omnipresent, we completely gave up on landlines. So you don't need copper wires, you don't need fiber optic cables for communication anymore, and you're just doing it over cell phones. So something similar is likely to happen in next 10 years. At least that is what we would like to see happening. That can leveraging the skies fundamentally become more efficient than using the 2D surface of the Earth. And that is like, can you imagine a future where people will be surprised that there was a time, there was something like roads, there was something like automobile, and you had to travel from one place to the other on the surface of the Earth and not the skies, which could become the default way to travel or default way to get things done. So whether it will happen in 10 years or not, but that is the direction that we would like technology to progress, to fundamentally come up with breakthrough innovations, which makes leveraging skies fundamentally more efficient than traveling or doing things on the 2D surface.
Perfect. Thank you, Nitin. Looking at the Q&A, in panels like this, especially because this is a global opportunity, I try to steer away from things that are very single country centric, and in this case, US centric. But there's a question out that's talking about drone manufacturing. And since we talked about the next 10 years, now we could talk about what happens in the next 12 months, which is the role of geopolitics in our space. And this is not necessarily autonomy or AI, but I think that it's something that was asked, and something that we should at least give the audience the responses that they requested. So the question was specifically about U.S. manufacturing and development of software. But Nitin, your organization is obviously an Indian-based company, so taking it as U.S. is probably not the question. It is really, how do we feel about the Chinese sentiment in the drone space over the next year and what that looks like? How does that modify the way that people are using drones, the price and the average sales price of drones, the rapidity of the innovation of drones? And I mean, all four of you have a vested interest in this in different ways. But I think, Jack, you with the American flag behind you and you manufacturing drones yourself, I want to start with you. How are you seeing the role of geopolitics play in how you're pivoting or what you're doing differently to address those needs if there is a vacuum?
Well, we think it's un-American to stifle competition. That's number one. My family immigrated to this country based on certain principles that we believe in because it's better than Taiwan. So we came here. We think that American manufacturers like ourselves, we need to have a blue supply chain. And that is something that we're putting together right now. As soon as we have it for ourselves, we're going to kind of offer that to other manufacturers, because this way we can get to economy of scale faster. It's helping them to help ourselves. In the unfortunate instance of disruption in the Taiwan Straits, where we have some issues over there in the Far East, we need to be prepared to have, one, a stockpile of components that's going to last us for X number of months, depending on each company's rate of shipment. But we also need to invest in American manufacturing on key components like batteries, for instance. That's one of the weakest spots, and I'm sure everybody here that's in the drone space, we all know about this. So that's all I have to say.
Jack, really awesome response. Not what I thought, and I salute you for feeling the same as many do.
Why should we be afraid? Right? Yeah. Why should we be afraid, right? It's not like this country have never been challenged before in manufacturing, right? In the 80s, the American car industry thought that the Japanese car industry was going to completely overwhelm us. I drive a Jeep. It's a great car. I mean, they're still around. I mean, they're owned by Italians now. But anyway, that's another story.
All right. So Ryan, I'm going to give you the last shot at this, just because you are a consumer of this and you are not in the space that we're in, where we really, really care where the drones come from, because that's where the money, how we're making money or not making money. You as a user, what do you view as being kind of the made in blank when it comes to selecting your technology? And we got like 40 seconds to get an answer out.
Yeah. No, and this is nothing new in the security industry. I mean, we went through this with cameras and Hikvision and NDAA type of things. And I will say it comes down to the customer, what their sensitivity is. If it's critical infrastructure, it's a very high topic. If it's not, it really comes down more to capability, price point. I think ROI of the solution versus, the typical security officer is paramount in the calculation. And so, we find equal parts. The customer that has sensitivity to it, it's very high up there, and to the ones that aren't, it's really a non-issue. And more comes down to price and capability. But from our standpoint, we want to be putting things out there that we're comfortable, are safe, and operate efficiently. So, it's a challenge.
We just got the overrunning notice. So I'm going to say thank you for everyone being here. Thank you for everyone on the panel. One big thing is that it is one of the best compliments for you as viewers to go and follow these people on LinkedIn, to message them and say you like what they said. Let people know when they are putting out their time that you're hearing them, you're seeing them, that you believe in what they're saying. So I encourage that for anyone here.